The origin of the Nile Delta is a story that intertwines geology, history, mythology, and human civilization. It is a tale that stretches back millions of years, shaped by the forces of nature and the ingenuity of humankind. To understand the Nile Delta, we must first understand the Nile River itself, for the delta is the culmination of the river's journey, a sprawling, fertile expanse where the Nile meets the Mediterranean Sea. The Nile Delta is not just a geographical feature, it is the cradle of one of the world's oldest civilizations, a place where legends were born, and where the interplay of water, land, and human endeavor created a landscape of unparalleled significance. The Nile River, often regarded as the longest river in the world, flows over 6,650 kilometers from its sources in the highlands of East Africa to its delta in northern Egypt. The river has two main tributaries, the White Nile, which originates from Lake Victoria in Uganda, and the Blue Nile, which begins at Lake Tana in Ethiopia. These two tributaries converge near Khartoum, Sudan, and from there, the Nile flows northward through the deserts of Egypt, eventually fanning out into the delta before emptying into the Mediterranean. The delta itself covers an area of about 24,000 square kilometers, forming a triangular shape that has been compared to the Greek letter delta, hence its name. The geological formation of the Nile Delta began millions of years ago, during the late Miocene epoch, around 5 to 10 million years before the present. At that time, the Mediterranean Sea experienced a dramatic event known as the Mycenaean salinity crisis, during which the sea nearly dried up due to tectonic activity that closed the Strait of Gibraltar. This event caused the Nile to cut a deep canyon into its bed, as the river sought to reach the lowered sea level. When the Mediterranean refilled around 5.3 million years ago, the Nile's sediments began to accumulate at its mouth, gradually building up the delta over millennia. The delta's formation was further influenced by fluctuations in sea level during the Pleistocene epoch, which saw alternating periods of glaciation and warming. During glacial periods, sea levels dropped, and the Nile carved deeper channels. During interglacial periods, rising seas caused the river to deposit its sediments, creating the flat, fertile plain we see today. The Nile Delta's fertility is one of its most defining characteristics. The river carries vast amounts of silt from its upstream regions, particularly from the Ethiopian highlands, where the Blue Nile erodes volcanic rock. This silt, rich in nutrients, is deposited across the delta during the annual inundation, a natural flooding cycle that historically occurred between June and September. The inundation was a lifeline for ancient Egyptian civilization, as it replenished the soil and allowed for the cultivation of crops such as wheat, barley, and flax. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus famously described Egypt as the gift of the Nile, recognizing the river's central role in sustaining life in an otherwise arid landscape. The delta's fertility also made it a hub of human activity from prehistoric times. Archaeological evidence suggests that the Nile Delta was inhabited as early as the Paleolithic period, with settlements becoming more established during the Neolithic era, around 5000 BCE. By the time of the pre-dynastic period, circa 3100 BCE, the delta was home to thriving communities that engaged in agriculture, fishing, and trade. The city of Buto, located in the northwestern delta, was an important center during this period and is often associated with the legendary kingdom of Lower Egypt, which later unified with Upper Egypt to form a single state under the first pharaoh, Nama. The unification of Egypt around 3100 BCE marked the beginning of the Pharaonic era, a period during which the Nile Delta played a crucial role in the development of Egyptian civilization. The delta's strategic location at the crossroads of Africa, Asia, and Europe made it a center of trade and cultural exchange. The ancient Egyptians built canals and irrigation systems to harness the Nile's waters, transforming the delta into a highly productive agricultural region. Cities such as Memphis, the capital of ancient Egypt during the Old Kingdom, and later Alexandria, founded by Alexander the Great in 331 BCE, became major political and economic centers. The Nile Delta also features prominently in Egyptian mythology and religion. The ancient Egyptians believed that the delta was the site of the primordial mound, the first land to emerge from the waters of chaos at the dawn of creation. This concept is closely associated with the god Atum, who was said to have created himself on the mound and then brought forth the other gods. The delta was also linked to the myth of Osiris, the god of the afterlife, who was murdered by his brother Seth and whose body was said to have been scattered across Egypt. According to legend, Osiris's head was buried at Abydos, while other parts of his body were associated with various locations in the delta. The delta's religious significance extended to its role as a center of worship for numerous deities. The city of Say, located in the western delta, was the cult center of the goddess Neith, a powerful deity associated with creation, wisdom, and warfare. The city of Bubastis, in the eastern delta, was dedicated to the cat goddess Bastet, whose festivals were among the most popular in ancient Egypt. The delta was also home to the cult of Sobek, the crocodile god, who was worshipped in cities such as Crocodilopolis, modern-day Fayoum. As Egyptian civilization flourished, the Nile Delta became a target for foreign powers seeking to control its wealth and strategic position. The Hyksos, a Semitic people from the Levant, invaded Egypt around 1650 BCE and established their capital at Avaris in the eastern delta. The Hyksos introduced new technologies, such as the horse-drawn chariot, but their rule was eventually overthrown by the native Egyptian rulers of Thebes, who reunified the country and ushered in the New Kingdom period, circa 1550–1070 BCE. During this time, the delta continued to thrive, with pharaohs such as Ramses II building monumental structures and expanding Egypt's influence abroad. The decline of the New Kingdom marked the beginning of a period of foreign domination for Egypt and the Nile Delta. The Assyrians, Persians, Greeks, and Romans all sought to control the delta, recognizing its importance as a breadbasket and a gateway to the Mediterranean. The founding of Alexandria by Alexander the Great in 331 BC transformed the delta into a cosmopolitan center of learning and culture. The city's famous library and lighthouse, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, attracted scholars, merchants, and travelers from across the known world. Under Roman rule, the delta remained a vital part of the empire, supplying grain to feed the population of Rome. The Arab conquest of Egypt in the 7th century CE brought significant changes to the Nile Delta. The Arabs introduced new crops, such as sugarcane and cotton, and established a network of canals and water wheels to improve irrigation. The delta's cities, including Cairo, which was founded in 969 CE, became centers of Islamic culture and learning. The Fatimid Caliphate, which ruled Egypt from the 10th to the 12th centuries, made Cairo its capital and transformed the delta into a hub of trade and commerce. The modern Nile Delta is a densely populated region, home to over 40 million people, or nearly half of Egypt's population. The delta's fertility remains its most valuable asset, supporting the cultivation of crops such as rice, corn, and vegetables. However, the delta faces numerous challenges, including urbanization, pollution, and the impacts of climate change. Rising sea levels and the reduced flow of the Nile due to the construction of dams, such as the Aswan High Dam, threaten to alter the delta's ecosystem and undermine its agricultural productivity. Efforts are underway to address these challenges, including the restoration of wetlands and the promotion of sustainable farming practices. In conclusion, the origin of the Nile Delta is a story of natural forces and human ingenuity, of myths and legends, of rise and fall, and of resilience in the face of change. From its geological beginnings millions of years ago to its role as the cradle of one of the world's oldest civilizations, the delta has been shaped by the interplay of water, land, and human endeavor. It is a place where the past and present converge, where the legacy of ancient Egypt lives on in the fertile fields and bustling cities of today. The Nile Delta is not just a geographical feature, it is a testament to the enduring relationship between humanity and the natural world, a relationship that continues to evolve as we face the challenges of the future.